For more on the migrant crisis, I'm joined by Pieter Cleppe. He's the editor-in-chief at BrusselsReport.eu. Thanks so much for your time, Peter. There's been a lot of criticism over Europe's failure to prevent tragedies like this, hasn't there? Do you think that those criticisms are warranted?
I do think so. I mean, this problem has been going for years now, and even if people drown now and then, the fact is that if you make this risky journey, there's a pretty decent chance that you will make it to European territory, and that eventually you will be able to stay one way or another, even if you are provided with a number of orders to leave the territory. Australia has been dealing with more or less the same challenge, and in Australia they have managed to outsource asylum processing, basically telling people, look, if you make it illegally, you will have to go somewhere else, and you will not be granted asylum in Australia. European leaders are trying something similar, but there's a long way to go because they're not prepared to copy exactly what Australia has done.
And Greece has also tightened up its measures in regards to illegal immigration. And just before the election, in fact, that was one of the strong pushing points for voters. But of course, we remember the refugee crisis back before 2015 and during, when thousands of migrants were crossing that strait between Turkey and Greece each day. Things have dropped considerably, I believe, down to 90%. But Europe has hardened its stance, as you say. Is it unfair to sort of put so much focus and blame on Greece when really it's its strategic geography that's making it so difficult for the country too?
Well, obviously, if you have people flooding Africa, Greece, Italy, and Spain will be facing pressure. If you have people, leaving Ukraine, obviously Poland will be facing pressure. So that's obvious. The thing is that, can we blame the Greek government? Yeah, I think we should blame all the governments of the European Union, because ultimately this is a legal problem. There should be ways to make sure that people no longer have an incentive to try to risk their lives. And in a nutshell, the solution is to only grant asylum to only grant access to the territory after people have received a yes to their asylum request. Of course, in order to do that, you have to have some offshore place, some location outside of EU territory where people can await their asylum request. Recently, the European Union, or at least member states, it's not final yet, have agreed that there will be so-called hotspots, location at the border where people will basically be prevented from leaving. That's the idea, at least, before they get a yes to their asylum request. But I think most experts are very skeptical that this can work. You probably need to deal with a country outside of the EU.
And also, there's always going to be people that want to jump the queue, so to speak, or that want to take that risk, even if it's such a dangerous and treacherous one like what happened just a few days ago. Can you give us a little bit more information about what leads people to make such desperate decisions to take their children onto a boat like this, and what kind of conditions are they fleeing?
Well, sadly, large parts of the world are still, very unpleasant to live. They are suffering poverty, dictatorship. Look at countries like Eritrea, for example, where you have a lifelong draft as a man. So I mean, these are terrible conditions, and it should not surprise that people want to make it to the European Union, where it's much better. But obviously there's no democratic support to welcome everybody in the European Union that wants to move there. Yes, there is democratic support to welcome certain people and certain levels, but at the moment our refugee legislation basically requires EU countries to welcome all 110 million refugees. According to the UN, there are 110 million. there is no democratic support for that whatsoever. So I think we also have to look at how to, how to bring democratic support in line with international regulations and international treaties. But this is anathema for many politicians, because they're sort of still not aware, I think, of the future challenges. The population of Africa is going to triple in the next few decades, so we see a lot more pressure.
Yeah, indeed. Pieter Cleppe, thank you very much. Editor-in-Chief at BrusselsReport.eu.